All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start it up, and as people are coming in, go with that, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
All right.
So, good afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on your perspective, everybody. I'm Frank Jordan with ERP Suites. Just go through the introduction and so forth. We'll do that in a minute. But basically, this is a little more in depth than what I did. We did a real high level one on Tuesday, and this particular one will delve into a little bit more, kind of explain. I know some of the other sessions, they've gone into very specific elements like the generative AI, or, we've had some talk about different types of document understanding and so forth. So this talks more on the technology, E1 technology side. So I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit more, give you a little bit higher appreciation of, like, if you want to do this yourself or learn about it, that'll take a little bit more time. It's not something you're going to learn in an afternoon, unless you have really, really long afternoons. But it's a fun journey. It keeps changing as we go along, and definitely been enjoying what I'm learning with that. Real quick intro, though, I'm a director of the JDE Technology here at ERP Suites. I've been also former Oracle / JD Edwards, kind of a little bit of an old timer in that respect. I've had the fortune of working with over 350 customers now and counting. Don't know if I'll make it to 400 because they get bigger and bigger sometimes, it seems, but get to work with smaller customers as well, which is a lot of fun. Basically, though, I've worked on our CNC, like I said, the machine learning private cloud, where we have our own hosting in ERP Suites at a few data centers, Oracle Cloud, AWS, and Azure. So, and now it's a little long in the tooth, but I'm also a co-author out on Amazon. There's an advanced tuning book, but a lot of things still apply. The same principles apply that are in that. If you're a CNC and want to learn a little bit more. Okay, so kind of this is a mix of, like I said, of demo. So we all know how demos go. And of course, today I've got thunderstorms coming, so I apologize if we do have some boomers in the background, or I've got my secondary backup line just in case. But hopefully it will be nice and calm for the next hour or so. But we're going to go through what we've got is an Oracle Cloud trial edition. So we have our own hosted labs and so forth, but the trial editions are nice because it's just to go out there, and I'll go ahead and just show it real quick. Seeing is always kind of the most fun part, isn't it? Here we go. So, like, if you were to go, you have your Oracle Cloud account, if you have your own OCI tenant, basically you can get a personal cloud account, and that's just your name, email, whatever you like to do. That usually gets billed against your own credit card, but your company could also have an OCI tenant, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. But you can go to the marketplace, look up JD Edwards, and just launch a trial edition. So that's what I've got going on here today. This is a trial edition that I'm running that is up in some of our instances. Just got different ones for various labs that I'm using there. Yes, they're switching. They're continuously updating, like most of the clouds. So I apologize if I get a few pop-ups, things like that. But what I'm doing today is we have this trial edition. This icon here is a single sign-on. So again, this is actually running in Oracle in Ashburn, North Carolina. And this is the E1 JSON Web Token login. So this one's linked up with our ERP Suites Microsoft Intra ID, or basically our LDAP or our domain. So all I have to do is click it. It authenticates me because I've already logged in, and kind of a nice little option. It's one of the things that we've been helping customers implement. But what we're doing here, I'll do the demo, come back in. I'm going to switch back and forth between multiple screens. But what we've done is just added a form extension that calls an orchestration. And like I said, we did demo this a little bit earlier. Carl DiGiovanni demoed, went down into the from the development side. But it's just an orchestration here. And in this case, we've got a document. And it's a one where we've gone and done, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but we have a custom model because it doesn't fall into the base ones that Oracle Document Understanding delivers. So I just add this in, click OK. And so in a minute, we'll get, like I said, I'll do a little more detail on what the orchestration is doing. But essentially, you know, it went in, it told me it submitted it. I can go in here. Now that I've got it, I'll just go search for it. We'll find Moe's Tavern for all of you that like The Simpsons. But so basically, this form went in, it goes and attaches what we sent into it. So here's the various parts of the document understanding is going out, parsing all this, recognizing, you know, determining based on the search type that it's a vendor supplier, puts the address in and all that. We'll just take a quick look. So I could go in and there's the information, puts in the mailing address and so forth. You know, I didn't type a thing. So, and then, like I said, it's there for reference so that it can be there. And also the, you know, the supplier type, the V for the vendor is there as well. I'll go ahead and get rid of this one. We'll do another document in a little bit. But I mean, it's the fun thing with orchestrations that most of you see. There's a lot to go under the covers, but to the user, it's just maybe click a button, drag and drop some files, you know, let it do an operation, and the little robot process goes and does whatever it's been keyed up to do. So a little bit of fun there. Like I said, it's kind of not so dramatic. But to kind of go back through it, high level, what this was doing is when I loaded the file, you know, I went into the address book, I clicked that form extension button. It went and sent the file into a bucket, you know, OCI object storage. I'll actually show that here in a moment. We can just I can do that right here. All right, we just do that. So under the covers, you know, we have to go into the cloud. In this case, it's our tenant, our ERP Suites tenant that we're using here. And the bucket is, just think it's file storage. So in this particular situation down here in the bucket, there's me again. This is in UTC time. I haven't adjusted it so it shows me my local time. But there's the document understanding. I've got a policy where it just keeps this stuff out for 24 hours, and then it will automatically delete it if I don't go in and delete it, things like that. So I'm kind of showing you a little bit behind the curtain here on the Oracle side, what it is doing and how we've got this. Again, this could be sitting in our data center. You know, this could be at your on-premise. You just have to have the internet connectivity because everything is going to be secured and encrypted. And that's a requirement to talk to anything in the cloud, or at least that's a requirement we always follow. But the you know, the bottom line is that this is not just, it has to be all Oracle. One of our product labs is AS400 and IBMI, and you know, we've got E1 9.2 on that one, and basically we're just adding, we put orchestrations in that, and like I said, we just have the ability for the AIS server to get out on the internet to be able to talk to the Oracle Cloud through the connection that we'll be talking about here in a minute. So let's just do that. Here's an example though of that. Again, what I was showing you, I've got the document. You go through, in this case, this API key, which I'll show you in a moment. Basically, that's our login. So they added that feature in 9282, release 24, kind of a little bit later. It just came out like late last year, September, October is when I think it became GA. So it's still relatively new. The main thing that you have to do is of course, you have to have the E1 security set up, to run the orchestration, be able to do the apps. About everybody can get the address book, but maybe not. But you have to have the proper E1 security. But on the other side, you also have to do whatever this API key is using that the orchestration's working through. You want to make sure that the Oracle Cloud security has the ability to get to the object storage and also to those needed AI OCI services. In this case, again, object storage and document understanding. Then on top of that, this particular one doesn't follow in the pre-trained models. So the lessons that Oracle JD Edwards has put out for you has like receipts and invoices. And they also have a couple for, drivers and driver license and passports. But what we had to do, because again, ours is quite a bit different, we basically made our own custom model, trained it to recognize some of the variations in these documents. And so again, this is a kind of a multi-purpose document where, it could be employee information or customer or supplier information, and you're just putting the appropriate pieces in. And again, the document understanding takes it from the object storage, goes in, reads that, returns the results of what it found in a JSON. Lots of information comes back in the JSON. So on how that works. This is what I'll show here in a moment, but we'll walk through. This is the orchestration, the various stages of the connectors talking to the connection. Again, I'll show a little bit of that. In our particular case, to go in and parse some of the information that comes back, got a couple different scenarios there. Usually, if you want to do the mappings, you could use a logic extension. That's one option. We chose because Carl, in this case, was the developer of this particular one. He likes using Groovy, so you could use Groovy scripts, JRuby, Jython. Just depends on your comfort level of the programming. And then as it goes through the various steps, again, we're taking that, and this is where we'll add the attachment. So I'll go ahead and show a little bit on the orchestration. That's always a little bit of fun. Here we go. And like I said, it's live demo. So hopefully everything cooperates. Internet gods will be nice to us. But the Oracle materials, a lot of this, again, I'll have some references down below. We'll go through some of it. It takes a while, though, the first time through. A lot of this documentation came out at the beginning of this year in 2025 in January. I do want to give kudos, real quick recognition to AJ Shafano's team in Oracle JD Edwards. I did some of the best documentation that I've seen with some really good examples. Again, I think you probably have heard, but Oracle, basically, the JD Edwards application can't have native AI built into it like they do with Fusion and NetSuite. So what they're doing is putting enablement technologies in this case, the OCI API key, to be able to get to that. So in this particular case, like if I have the connection here, I'm just putting the endpoint that I'm coming up with. And again, the Oracle documentation will tell you how to set some of this up. Usually the biggest change is going to be you have to figure out where is your tenancy, what location. They have literally dozens of data centers across the world. So here, if you're in the US, you've got a choice. I think it's now maybe 5 or 6 of them, but you've got US Ashburn in the Midwest, you've got Chicago, out west you have Phoenix, and a few others to go down. They have a nice API list that tells you what they are. When you log in your tenant, wherever you're going to roost, that's up to you. Obviously, you like to be a little bit closer because of latency, things like that. But you set up the endpoint, and then over on the other side of this, when, again, some of these things are taking you through, when you need to set up the API key, like in this particular case, I'm made a connection, I'm going ahead, I'm using mine. But I go into API keys, I would add a key, It'll create a fingerprint, and it will create a pair of certificates of private and public key. You're going to put that private key over on the JD Edwards side. So, again, I'm kind of I'm walking through it quickly. It takes a little while to get used to this, but once you're used to it, it's not too bad. It's like everything. The first time through takes a while, and then subsequently, as you get more and more experience with it, it'll become a little bit easier. Same deal with the document understanding. You're going to have an endpoint, again, kind of the same key in our case, but you're going to set things up. If you're productionizing it, you're probably going to set up a specific account that has the authority to the various OCI services for that particular key that you want to grant. So again, you're using the security that you need there. To go back over here though to the orchestration, I'll go ahead and put in. So here's the address book one that we were just looking at that I gave you the screenshot. So here's the first. Here we go. Try it again. Sorry, the clicking wasn't going right. But you set up your connector. Again, it's going to this OCI connection that's down here. Then it'll show us all the pieces, and you're adding in the parameters and the pathing that you need, whatever you're adding on to it along here. So this is what allows your orchestration through the connector to use the connection to get out to Oracle and talk to it. Next step, then, once it's put this was the first part. So when I did the dialog box and the form extension, it prompted me. I put the file in, so that put it over to the object storage that I showed a little bit earlier, that bucket. And then over here, this is the one that's going to talk to the document understanding. Similar item here, it's processing in. I'll kind of reference it, but basically when you're doing, you're adding on to it here, the values that you want to append at the end of the URL. So this is the document understanding service, its number. You'll get that in the documentation. Like I said, we'll show a little bit of it here. If I would, the documentation understanding API. So that way you know which one that you're calling. You're just walking down through that. Let's get back to that. So it goes into that. Here's, like I said, the results that come back, the JSON that you get back, you get quite a bit of information. So again, if you're comfortable doing Groovy, you're going to set up some slurpers and builders to be able to bring that JSON in. You're going down through, parsing pieces out. If something's not there, error it and so forth. So again, there's a little bit of code here depending on what you want to tease out of it. And then once you've got it, this is the piece for the ad. Some of the data. We're going back and forth, so I'll do that. This is where we got rid of the JSON. Sorry, it's a cleanup step. It's best if you can clean up your temporary files as you're using them, security and that type of stuff. Like I said, I have a sweeper, or a custodian or janitor process, whatever you like to call, that'll go in, and I just set it for a day. I mean, you could set it to be more aggressive. This is the part that actually goes into the address book, into the form service. Oops, sorry, wrong one. That's the next part. This is parsing that response. I apologize. I got ahead of myself. So, but it's going down through, gets that response data, passes this out, and this is what's going over to address book. Sorry, here we go. But in this particular case, with the form service, the first one's going to be clicking the add button to add the address book record. Goes into the revisions, passing in the various fields that you want it to. And then the last one will be to close the application. And then as a step, we just got a rule checking. If there is an address number here, then it'll go over here to do and add that attachment. So it's going to go in based on that. Like I said, I'll come back over here. Then the bottom line, this is the placeholder here if we have the false condition. But if we come back over to this, I can do another file. And in this case, let's say I had different document. I'll click OK. Again, this is all development side, so it's not production level resources, that we're paying for. But it's working pretty quickly. So I can go into this, look for that address, user, go and do my find, and same deal. I can go in and look at the information. This one's an employee, so I think we've got her address, located in Boston, and so forth. We go over to the actual document that we submitted in. Again, it's just where the form got filled out. Document understanding went down through it and filled in all the fields for us. So did the user. It's kind of nice. It's an optical character recognition or data application like that, personalized for a particular process. And again, you could create this for a number of different things. Maybe you want you're wanting to do your own. Maybe there's some data entry. Traditionally, maybe something's coming through a fax or someone emails things in. You could look at taking that information and have the document understanding go through it. Okay, so let's go back. Let's see, was there anything else over here? Yeah, I mean, that's the basics on the OCI side. I mean, there is, under the document understanding, like I said, I'll pull the curtain back a little bit here. You do have to have either mobile team members. You'll have to have, just like you would if you were using AWS or ChatGPT or any of the others. You will have to understand, the platform that you're working on, be within that. So like here, we've got an address book model that we put together. So that's what this particular document understanding is using when we call the API. Again, the overview has other ones, but this is kind of nice on the OCI side where you can go through some workshops if you want to look at the code and so forth, how it works. They're giving you a lot of examples. Again, Oracle did a really nice job in getting a few learning examples, and I'm going to go through some of that here in a minute, just to kind of show you. So I basically tried to give you a little bit of a cookbook or a reference of this. We did it as well in the earlier one, but I found it's a lot easier, and Learn JDE does a really nice job. There was also some presentations at InFocus that Oracle did. I've actually reused a few of those slides and put a bibliography at the end of it, but they did a nice job of kind of explaining some of these pieces. So let's go in and just look at some of that. So again, the main piece of this, the missing piece until release 24.9282, was this API key-based authentication. Until that, it was, I'll be kind, it was a challenge to be able to access the OCI services. So, putting this in now, it literally is a drop-down box on the connection, and you're just setting up some API keys to whatever you're needing to do, and off you go. Like I said here, there's a wealth of opportunities, though. I mean, once you've got this, you're calling a lot of different services. I'll walk through that here in a minute. The thing about it, with like most of the AI, this is kind of like where we were with orchestrations 10 years ago. So now we're building, though, the platforms keep building on itself. We're getting more Legos or Tinker Toys, whatever you like to go with there. But the nice part about it is it's continuously expanding and learning the cloud. A lot of the prompts, the consoles, and so forth. It's like most of the clouds. You blink a week and something else has been changed. So it continuously is updating and so forth. The benefit of, again, with orchestrations is over the years, you're not tying yourself to just one type of user interface. So initially, when the history, when we came out with orchestrations, it was supposed to be, mainly devices, IoT. Well, and then it's like, well, we could do some of this on the desktop. So various UDOs started coming out to be able to facilitate being able to use orchestrations more and more. Then mobile as well, along with that, gave you another user interface. Now, because of REST APIs, AI agents, you can have those be talking to it. So, you're not limited to just one type of channel anymore. You have multiple avenues to expose how you want to do a process. One point of view, though, that at least this is my personal point of view, if you're trying to learn all these pieces, the OCI AI, OCI infrastructure itself, if you haven't had any familiarity with that, you either perhaps work with someone that is maintaining that cloud that knows that, get your provision, that type of thing. There's a lot of free certifications and classes that they offer as well, like what they call OCI foundations and so forth. You can go through that, or assemble a team. This is enough complexity that you probably will want to have multiple disciplines together if you're wanting to do this. Just like when we go and work on something for a customer, we have the various team members depending on if it's a particular application, financials, distribution, manufacturing, payroll, HR payroll, etc. You're going to bring in different business team members. You're going to have, for orchestrations, sometimes it's our business analyst, depending on what it is. Other cases, we have dedicated developers like Carl. He's very well kept on Groovy scripting and so forth. So if we can't do something in an orchestration, we'll bump it up and he can program it there, which Groovy is a subset of Java. So that makes it really nice. Again, but there's JRuby and Jython, like I mentioned earlier. So you have that. You also then have, learning E1 Orchestrator. If you're not familiar with it, it definitely, I'll call it low code. I won't always, I'm not going to say it's no code as it's sometimes mentioned, but in some cases it can be. But the bottom line on this is just with any of these, with the AI type services or any other type of services, you're going to have multiple disciplines probably. You might be able to get a general understanding and work with each one, but it might also be faster, like I said, to collaborate or use a consulting firm to help you learn to fish, teach you to fish so that you can build some on your own. So again, for me, the crux of this was when they came out with this was presented by Nicole Laurent from Oracle. She's one of under AJ Schifano on that team. He said this was really nice, and essentially all it is we're setting it up with a security policy. We're going to just say there's a new feature there with the OCI API key. And this is not, what the services we're talking about, of course, we're focused more on the AI side of the services. But again, Oracle Cloud has literally 150 different sets of services available. And so I've got a reference here. Again, I've got another reference. We'll walk through some of these so you can just kind of see the docs to get a little visual. But what we're showing you is just a tip of the iceberg when we talk about perhaps AI vision or basically generative AI or languages, document understanding. We go down through the list and rattle some off. Other examples here, there's things that you can do with the OCI infrastructure. So you can actually work with your instances and so forth, or get information about performance of an application if you're using OCI to monitor it, etc. So what are some of these OCI services? Again, we've had a number of our team members and sessions touch on them. So this came from, these slides here came from Oracle on a presentation that they did at InFocus 2024. So again, I've got it referenced in the bibliographies. If you are a Quest member, obviously if you haven't downloaded it, I'd ask you to go in and look at that. They had a lot of nice information. But again, document understanding, that's what we were going through. That's what we were bringing up here. But you're setting up either pre-trained or customizable models. And like I said, for the forms that we were doing, we have a custom model. It takes a little bit of getting used to walk through that. You're training it for the examples you're giving it. You're feeding it document, giving examples, reinforcing a little bit, oh, yeah, this is right. Whoops, you didn't recognize that. Once you've got that text recognition and all that set up, then you're getting the key value pairs, of the JSON. You're getting that information that comes back. And like I said, the accuracy is pretty darn good. I mean, it can do handwritten notes. It can, like the example here, it can do a document going down through it. And I found it's pretty good. Also, in the details of the JSON, you're getting confidence levels too. So you can also set thresholds to say, well, if you're not that confident, maybe I want to call that out or do something of that nature. Another neat one that we've done some for machine learning is, again, we're focusing more on the various services from an enterprise perspective. So I think we've had some of the people talk about, I know the press, the large language models gets, the chat GPTs get a lot of the press, but we're looking at, and those are possibilities as well. Again, OCI, you can house it with Cohere or Meta's Llama, those type of large language models, so you can have a conversation and so forth, and it'll be really secure because it's not going to Meta or Cohere's data centers. These are housed inside of Oracle's data centers. So, you can have some extra security there, privacy of your data, and so forth. But the vision's really cool because it can label things. The good use case here, they're talking about, maybe you've got a camera you're going down through and you've got it trained to say, this is what a good part looks like. With machine learning, it can go in and take an examination of that. And so, well, look, it's missing a tab, or, this part is warped or something like that, as a way of augmenting the quality controls and so forth. So again, OCI vision is just another way of recognizing and identifying video or photographs. And then the generative AI, like I said, we had some separate sessions on this. As I mentioned, Meta and Cohere. Basically, you're using that to talk to it. You grab the pieces out of it. Everything has a cost depending on how large or small that you want to make the scope of it. As they noted here, you're not going across various clouds going into somebody else's. You're not sending your data out to Meta, to Facebook, where they have it in the generalized model, where it could possibly, something could be exposed, those type of things. And you probably have experienced that just like in your meetings and so forth. A lot of the meeting software between Teams, WebEx, and Zoom, now they have the AI that's going in and summarizing the meeting notes and so forth, giving you a recap, who said what, and that's an example of using the generative for that. But overall, from the orchestrator perspective here, so we've got JDE up here. This is your particular on-premise, like I said, private cloud, public cloud, your JDE Edwards instance. You're using that OCI API connector through a secure connection, and then you're picking and choosing a combination of services. Like what we were doing, we only needed the document understanding, and the other service was the object storage. But maybe you have, like our Franklin will use the digital assistant, so we talk to that. Have to admit, we haven't done much that I'm aware of with the code assist, so I can't speak to that. The Gen AI and all that, though, this is some of the machine learning and some of the other capabilities to help identify and talk, like I said, natural language, those type of things. So it's a combination of the two that's going on there. But the steps, just to give you a high level, and then, like I said, I'm going to also show different parts of where a lot of this stuff is at, and maybe you've seen it, maybe not. But like I said, I tried to put it into a few sets of slides. We'll pop into it, so maybe you can see examples of what I'm talking about. It also the learning labs, the Oracle library, will give you an estimate of how long some of these courses take. So again, you can stop and then where we're at a stopping point. But most of them are going to be, 20 minutes to an hour. But there are a few that are 5-6 hours. So, just want you to get used to the time investment. There is some commitment there. But high level, what we've got going on here, when you're creating a data set, it has to label it first. So you're going to categorize it by what type of annotations you're doing. You're giving it samples of data. You add those annotations and labels so that it knows how to process it. Then, and this is really nice because this used to be machine learning experts, and now this is a lot, a lot more automated. But like I was showing you, we create a custom project. We choose the model type that we want to do. We do the data set. We feed it in some examples of our documents, go through and reinforce it. And then when you're done with it, you just call that custom model instead of the delivered ones. So to get to the wealth of documentation, exercises, and so forth, to go into this, let's see. Yep, okay, that'll work. There's the tools and technologies. There's the orchestrator section, but then of course Oracle also has beyond orchestrator here. It has the JDE Edwards and Oracle AI. That's what we're looking at here. Typical 3 phases here. Get you started. You go down through some different documents. I really like the augmenting. Well, I'll bring this one up here in a minute. How to do the services. And again, this one takes a little while your first time through, but once you get through it, creating a connection. Once you've done your first one, you get the concepts down. They tend to go a lot faster. All right. And like I said, the augmenting one, I'll go ahead and just bring that up. So this doc, like I said, it came out earlier this year. Get through all the regular Oracle disclaimers. It's got the value proposition, what OCI services have to offer. Again, it's building on other pieces. You're building on orchestrator, which you can do with that kind of general purpose, the steps that you're using, and then it gives you a nice summary. But I said the basics here. They've got some good examples. It literally walks you through it. That's how we learned how to do it. I fully admit that I consider myself to be decently technical. We tried to do this in last October, November. Got it close, but I knew I was missing certain pieces. So then I waited for the documentation and all the examples came out. Then everything clicked in January, February, when we started going and working with this. So definitely, I think I've set up my 3-time rule now, but go through the learning path. Learn JDE is your friend, and I think you can be pretty successful. But again, look at these from high level, the other piece of this from the authentication is your orchestrations and so forth. That's going to be controlled by your E1 security. So if they can't get to the application, well, they're probably not going to get to the orchestration that's built into it on the form extension. So you're controlling it there. The E1 security, depending on how you have your UDO security set up, you may not be able to execute that orchestration or its associated components. So you've got all that piece. Basically connections tend to, usually they're a little bit open, but you can control that. So if you had something that you only want, let's say maybe it was HR payroll, you want to restrict that connection so that only certain orchestrations could even use it, and certain users, that certainly can be set up there. The key then, and again, that's the account like I was showing before. You're setting that up, you get some API keys, that gets put over back to the E1 connection side. Then you're using the OCI security and access control to get to various services and object storage. So there's more security on this, but in this day and age, we've got to account for it. A lot of different things here. I alluded to this one initially, but here's a list as I scroll along. Different types of APIs. It's not just AI. So we go down through, we've got digital assistants. Here's the document understanding that we were talking about. And if I wanted to get a little more detail, I can get into that. Like we were calling the processor job. So I would bring that up. I go into the reference. Then I can see the information that I have to pass in. And again, the Oracle examples are nice. It gives you a starting point. You look at these and you can say, okay, yeah, and well, I know I've got to have a compartment ID, where it's located within my tenant. What parameters do I need to bring through? So really helpful to walk through that, and you can see the different ones that you have there. Another one, again, this is a nice learning library. So again, like I was talking about, this one takes you maybe about a half hour. It's a document to read through. But like I said, these I continuously, I just download them, keep them in a folder, and refer back to them. Or if working with customers and they want the information, I'm referencing them, but also then sharing those, and we're discussing it as well. I'm sorry, sometimes I forget to make it a little larger and perhaps make it a little easier to read. But again, it talks about Oracle, JD Edwards, their strategy, what they're doing, their architectures that they have in OCI to really make it performant and work well. This is kind of their general infrastructure slide. It talks about it. Felt kind of bad. We didn't get listed. We're the industry applications. So, but like I said, you can see where the Fusion applications and some of those have embedded AI built into them. It's kind of third-party applications, whatever's outside of that umbrella. And another good one here is the FAQ. Again, another one takes about maybe a half hour. A lot of good questions though that they add on to it. So when you have to explain this to somebody else, I would go through this document here. Again, good way to learn what they're doing, get familiar with all the terminology. Why is Oracle AI? Why does it work well? Again, it's Oracle working with Oracle, so the technology stack can be a little bit tighter. They're prioritizing certain enhancements and so forth. Not again, Orchestrator will work with any kind of REST API, but again, each vendor you have to go through and work with that REST API and tease out the information that you might need. And then my favorite part, this is where you actually get down to it. We get through it, we start learning it. Here is the actual example. So these are the labs. So you just, again, you got to have an Oracle sign in, but if you use Oracle support or anything like that, you just log in with your single sign-on to Oracle. This guy will take you through. Again, it's intermediate, meaning, to walk through this stuff, you do have to have a bit of technical knowledge, or at least persistence to do some technical tasks. But once you enroll in it, it will come back and tell you, again, you've got to be on 9282. That's why I was saying let's say you were in release 23 or something. You can still do this. All you have to do is get a trial edition, and then get some justification to get E92 updated to release 24, 25, something of that nature. And as I mentioned, you have to have your OCI subscription, and then again, someone's got to set you up, give you the authority to get to the relevant services that you're wanting to do. This will walk you down through it, tells you how long they take. This is a video walkthrough that's out on YouTube. Again, I'm not going to play it, but a lot of the steps are here in what you're doing. Again, you access it, you get your connector, make sure the storage is working, the document understanding. You walk through. This is taking you through all the orchestration pieces and those steps. So again, very helpful here, where it just takes you through a nice example. Strongly recommend doing that. This is the best way, in my opinion, to learn. And then, it gives you the examples that we were talking about here, the more generalized. If you were out on the West Coast, then this changes over to go to Phoenix as an example. So it's just helping you recognize where you have to fill the information in, and kind of what you have to copy and paste where. Another good one. This one's the meat. As you may see over here, this bad boy is over 300 minutes. So 5+ hours. If, like I said, if you have a really long afternoon and don't get interrupted, you could do that. But this is kind of piecing all of this stuff together. How to use Vision. So, like I said, this one's a lot of fun to walk through and do some examples. In this case, when Nicole from Oracle done what it was an expense receipt. I think she had one. I think it was from Walmart or something like that. So it was using that to analyze, pop the data in, and fill in the expense report and include the attachment. So again, if you have the time, these are a lot of fun to walk through. Another one with invoice processing. I think, how long is this one? Oh, there's no estimate. You can get through this one in no time at all. Not too bad. No, if I recall, this one was a few hours. The other thing about it is, again, if you're not used to JRuby, which is the default in release 23 or 22, excuse me. So JRuby is there by default. And if you need Groovy or Jython, you just ask your CNC. They can put the jar files onto the AIS server as an example. But this will give you a little bit more on the scripts and a little bit more meat to work with. So most of the stuff at the beginning, again, cookie cutter. Once you've got your connection, your authentication, all that working, these things tend to be the same. So it explains to you again, how do you set up the authentication? What do you do? So here's the OCI side. You get your preview of your configuration file that you're going to copy and paste certain elements over. And the bottom line is, a lot of these pieces here are, if you've done Orchestrator, it's similar to that, in the sense that if you want to troubleshoot an orchestration, let's say you're doing form services and stepping through like what we were doing there with the simple one with the address book. If you want to make sure you can do all those steps with your user ID, go do them, through E1 on the web. Use the process recorder, of course, to record some of the steps as well. But if you can do the process, then that's a way of troubleshooting it and verifying that you do have the security that you need, the access to pull up the data and so forth. Because again, an orchestration is just a robotic process doing what a user could do. And in some cases, it can do it faster in that particular perspective. But same deal here for OCI is the point I was trying to make. Go into the compartment, go to the object story, see if you can, see down in the bucket, a file and so forth. And that helps verify that you have all the pieces that you need. And then last but not least, this one I didn't do as much. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I'm not logged in or something. But this is using a different. It's not really an AI API, but like I said, there's over 150. They're just giving you another connection so that you can see how much CPU that you were using, or how much OCI services that you're using. So, like if you were running up there and you needed to know, well, I'm using document understanding or vision, you can have the API come back and then tell you. So, and then this one's a little different in that they want you to be bumped up a little bit higher on the tools release, things like that. So, but not too bad. But again, things to be aware of if you want to do that. Ever evolving, always changing. All right, so back to here. Let's go. So in summary, like I said, I was trying to make this so I'd have a little bit of questions, but also give you time to get to the next session. It's very powerful, release 24 and above. I think they give you a lot besides the application updates and feature functionality. Just this one piece here is, opening the door into Oracle Cloud quite a bit more. It changes every day. Like I said, the OCI side has new panels and new ways of navigating that came up this week. The great thing about it is all designed from the ground up. It is enterprise grade. The security and everything's all built in. It's a lot of things that are no trust until you open something back up. And again, just to come back to it, this is not where you have to be all Oracle. You don't have to have everything in Oracle Cloud. Obviously, the services are going to be in a particular cloud. But again, your E1 system, that could be in your data centers. It could be in a private cloud like our ERP Suites data centers, or it could be one of the public clouds. You could be in AWS or Azure as an example for OCI. I was demoing, again, we were in OCI there. So there I left it. So we've got a few minutes of questions if anybody wants to go in on the chat. But I've got my email address there. You guys have probably all seen all the obligatory talk to us. We will be out at Blueprint in early June for Quest. So if see some of you out there. But we also tend to be at a number of the video groups and this video podcast that I don't know. I might be classified as Grandpa's JDE since I used to work with World and so forth back then. But almost going to be a grandpa, actually. I'm going to have my first grandbaby. Is from a real quick personal note. Got one coming at the end of October. So my daughter's having first child. So I'm excited about that. Okay, well, thank you. That pretty well concludes this part. And there's Scott coming back on stage right on cue.
Yeah.
I don't see anything in the chat, but I know we're also on the last day, and I also did this right during lunchtime. So thank you guys for your time.
We still got a lot of people on. So yeah, if any questions, send them away, or we'll get them off to Frank afterwards. Congratulations, Frank, being a grandpa soon.
Thank you.